Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer, dear listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. I welcome you to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast as your host, and I have a hell of a show for you. You're going to really love this one. I brought Pastor Alex Moss to the studio, and he's going to talk to us about intergenerational or transgenerational wealth creation and retention and business mindfulness in general. But I always want my guests to be the ones who do most of the talking. Can you please introduce yourself to the people, sir?
Thank you. Thank you for having us today. We're such an exciting session. I have been following this podcast. I'm a student of your work, so it's exciting. It's a privilege to be here. My name is Alex Moss. I am a pastor. I am also a business person. We run a business called PEBS, Progressive Equity Building Systems, and the church is called the Divine Word Ministries. The business is located here at the wonderful Mogobe Plaza CBD, third floor, and the church is at behind the old Chobe design. That's the G West Industrial. That's where we are located. Our services are on Sundays and Thursdays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell them about your personal background in terms of your condensed CV of some sort.
A condensed CV. I'm from a civil engineering background. I was born in Bulawayo, and I moved here about 25 years ago. So that's how long I've been here. And I worked for civil engineering companies for about 5 years, and then stopped and walked out of formal employment because I felt I was kind of curious. I felt I could make what I was being paid. So I decided to start my own business. So I've been in business from the age of 25. That's how long I've been doing business. And then about 7 years ago, we responded to the call of God and started the work. But I've been a Christian since 1995 as well. Yeah.
All right. Engineering. Which field of engineering?
Civil. I did civil engineering.
And why did you decide to transfer some of your skills from engineering to business?
I think I'm speaking for most of us, most people anyway. Careers we kind of find ourselves in a particular career choice, not because we make informed decisions. I think that's where I was exposed. I have a brother-in-law who was into civil engineering, and my parents were both teachers, but I did not want to do what my parents were doing, so I kind of gravitated away from what they were doing, and the only thing I could then do was what I was exposed to, which was civil engineering. But I loved it. I loved the whole, the fact that it kind of was away from what I was used to, and it also was kind of challenging. I'm one person who enjoys challenges, and it was very challenging, and so because of that, I felt that was what to do. And then after about 5 years of formal employment, I also, my curiosity took the better of me, and I started now pursuing business. But the first line of business I did was consulting. I was doing consulting in civil engineering. I used to do subcontracting, small small jobs. I'd go to big contractors, get subcontracting jobs, but still within the civil engineering field. And then my appetite for business grew from there. I kind of explored this and that and got myself informed in a few other things, and hence.
And then, as a businessman, 7 years ago, you developed an interest in starting your own church. Tell us about that experience. Was it some kind of Damascus experience of some kind?
Yeah, my spiritual journey is a whole story on its own. My father was a very spiritual person. I grew up in a very highly spiritual home, but he wasn't a pastor. So this is what happened. My grandfather, just in a minute, my grandfather was a pastor, but then he got poisoned and died. So my dad became, out of anger, he sought, I think, what was then seemingly a path that would help him avenge the death of his father. He then became a spiritual person. That he went into what I think we have it in our language is called a sangoma, which here would be traditional doctor, but specifically like with both sides, which is the healing plus the witchcraft thing combined. So he was a very spiritual person. Traditional doctor.
Yeah, I want to insist.
Yeah, maybe let's insist on. Well, we always find the dark side of it being somewhat unappealing. So, yeah. So because of that, he was a traditional doctor. So I grew in that house. I grew up in that house. I saw all kinds of things. So at some point, my uncle, I have an uncle that was very prayerful. He was born again, very prayerful. He started pulling me along, drawing me. Whenever he was going to services, he would take me along with him. So when I was very young, I got then exposed to prayer and the Word of God. And so then I gave my life to the Lord. And then he became my mentor in prayer. I started to pray. And that's when I began to hear and feel the call of God There was actually a prophecy that my grandfather had received, that one of his sons was going to take over and run in the same pastoral race. But none of his sons did that. So they thought my dad was going to be the one. But when I became a Christian, then that attention was kind of given to me, because I became the first person after my grandfather to become a child of God.
So it's a legacy issue, it's a prophecy issue.
Prophecy issue, legacy issue. And I remember when my grandmother found out that I was now a child of God, and I was actually studying to become a pastor. They gave me all the books that the old man had. So I had an entire library for this stuff that he had. Yeah. So then there was a prophecy over my life on the work. It was very specific. I remember the day, the time, when the Lord spoke about the ministry. It was actually during a service, and there was a song that was being sung. The song had a line which was, "Every promise in this book is mine, every chapter, every verse, every line. I am trusting in His word divine, every promise in this book is mine." So we're singing that song, and then I heard clearly the Lord saying, "I am giving you an assignment. You will teach the word, and the name of the ministry will be called the Divine Word Ministries." Yeah, it was very clear. At the point, I didn't even know I had never been, by the way, at this point I'm at UCCSA, so I'm not in a ministry of sorts. I'm in a mainline church. And so I had never been exposed to ministries. So it was after that I then began to, but that's a long time ago. I kind of shelved it and forgot about
I had
it.
to scratch the surface.
Yeah.
Let's talk about PEBS, your current business. Tell the audience a little bit of what those the acronym, what it means, and what the business does.
What the business does. PEBS is also a business platform, right? It's progressive equity building systems. It is also birthed out of it's a kind of a platform concept of business, which there are other things that we do as PEBS, but the main heart of the business is to be a platform to build startups, SMEs, and to kind of create a place of meeting for different businesses, business ideas. This is what happened as I was coming up in life. I noticed that a lot of times I've had to work very hard to get things started. And I noticed there was something wrong with that. If we have to, each generation has to start from scratch. Each person who's doing anything has to cut their own tree, create their own space. We are not progressing as a people. So PEBS was kind of birthed out of that to establish a business model that allows business people, allows people with different skills and professions to kind of conglomerate and help each other in their growth processes, to avoid having to take the long route because you don't know your way around. Yeah. So
what precisely are the services on offer?
Right. So we, as a business, we offer advisory, we offer mentorship, business mentorship, but also we do like connecting businesses with the people they need, especially within the Botswana market, but also regionally. So at this moment we are working on, we have Zambia, Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda. So if somebody wants to expand, or if somebody wants to try other markets, these are the countries that we are now, we have offices there, we have people that we are working with there. So if
so an entrepreneur would typically package his enterprise, give it to you, and then you would be the first people to test out a market for them, or
yes.
How does it work?
So what we do is if you have a business concept, or even if it's still an idea, it doesn't have to be a well-packaged business, it doesn't have to have been processed, even if it's an idea. If somebody walks into our office and they have they want to try something, want to try maybe venturing into education, for example, we then can work with them because what we have done is within the Botswana, within our context, within our nation, we have members of so there's the PEBS platform, there's members. So there are members that know maybe in the education field. If somebody walks in, we will know who to connect them with to help them navigate the waters. If we had met, let's say yourselves, and we had sold this concept, and somebody wants a legal mind around whatever concept, we would be then to say to them, okay, no, instead of going to look around for somebody to help you legally, we have a member on this platform. We will give them their number, we give them your card, they walk into your office, but then these are coming as our client, because the PEBS platform is not just PEBS as in us, but it's PEBS, the community. So there's a PEBS community. that then helps the person navigate. It doesn't matter what it is the person wants to do. We want to create a community, because this is something that we're building. We want to create a community that will help a person navigate their way through whatever it is they want to do, so that they're able to get their business started quickly. They don't spend time doing what other people have tried and failed to do.
I'm going to call you back to discuss PEBS in detail.
Yes,
It's a
yes.
whole story.
It's
Today,
a whole, yeah.
we want to focus on the question of transgenerational entrepreneurs. Why do you think this subject is important?
Transgenerational entrepreneurship. The reason why this is very important, in fact, for us as a present day entrepreneurs, is because let's look at it this way. First of all, from a Christian background, our God is a transgenerational God. The introduction we get of God is He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now that says He's a transgenerational God, which means His plans are not executed and completed only within a generation. Yes, there are things that are going to be executed within a generation and completed. However, the grand story is told. One story is told across generations. He calls Abraham out of the Ur of the Chaldees. He tells him He's going to give him a land. He shows him the land. He shows him a promised land. But Abraham does not possess that promised land. He tests it, but the generation that later comes, it's many generations later we find the fulfillment of that promise. So when he was talking to one man about his plan, it was going to be executed over many generations. Now, if we are working then with a God who is a transgenerational God, and it is our responsibilities as well as business people to, whether it's business, with ministry, whatever it is, even families, whenever you're building, it is the responsibility of the initial bricklayer or the trench digger to make sure that the next generation doesn't come to dig the same trench.
Yeah. All right, the way you explain it as a title to discuss is build it for 3 generations. Yes. Why 3?
That's the shortest period. At least build it to last at least 3 generations. That's the short. If you have failed to build a transgenerational business, it must last at least 3 generations.
Okay, unpack that for us, using perhaps the example of a Chinese bamboo model.
All right, now let's look at the Chinese bamboo model. The Chinese bamboo, they say it takes 5 years. If you take a seed, the Chinese seed, it will take 5 years on the ground. That means there's going to be a lot of patience required for the first generation to build something that will last across a generation. So after 5 years, now there are many things you can plant and harvest within those 5 years. If you're doing maize, you can do planting and harvesting, I think, 3 times in a year. So by the time you get one shoot of a Chinese bamboo, you have harvested over 7 times. Right? But the Chinese bamboo thing, it will take about 5 years in the ground. And then when it starts growing, they say it grows to heights of about 60 centimeters a day. So you can practically take a chair and watch it grow. Because if it grows those heights per day, that means also within about 2 weeks, it's done growing. You have over 30 meters within 2 weeks. Now, ancient China, this is what they used for scaffolding before the advent of steel and all that.
They still use it.
Some still use the bamboo.
I've seen some Chinese.
Yeah, it's still there.
Bamboo-like
thing. That thing does not break. It's very strong. Right. So the time it will take to grow is going to be very quick. The time it will be very strong. However, it has done most of its work on the foundation stages. So if we are going to be building entrepreneurs if we're talking to entrepreneurs, if we're going to be building businesses that will last across generations, then our responsibility is to make sure the foundation is very strong. That means we have to deal with the problems we are facing today and be very futuristic to even address problems that are yet to arise.
Isn't the biggest challenge one of watering and providing manure for this bamboo tree when there's no sign of it for those 5 years?
Exactly. So the level of discipline, the level of discipline required. If you give this Chinese seed to this bamboo seed to somebody who doesn't understand it, they are probably going to dig it up at some point. After a year and a half, 2 years, you're going to think this thing is dead. Dig it up and think it's not. This thing died.
Or just walk away.
Or just walk away and forget about it. Right? So there's high levels of discipline if we are going to build lasting things. If we're going to build something that will last.
You want us to build enterprises that serve the human family, not just your immediate family.
Yes.
Can you please unbundle that for me?
If we, in fact, purpose. Every human being is created with a purpose, an assignment within us. So when God created the eye doesn't see itself without an aid. You have to get a mirror for the eye to see itself. But the eye can see my hand. So all things created were not created for themselves. God doesn't create the ear for itself. The ear understands sounds, but it doesn't make sound. It can interpret sounds, it can say it's a bad sound, but it doesn't make sounds. So it was created to serve a purpose, and it may not necessarily be the one that produces the noise that it interprets for the rest of the body. So as a human being, there are things that we are able to do better than others. And the reason why we are able to do those things better than others is because it is so that the next person can then benefit from that which I do. So if my business model is designed in such a way that I want to serve the human family, well, we often say in business, we find a problem and solve it and get paid for solving that problem. But not only that, yes, that's one, but the second thing is find something that gives you fulfillment. Something you will do even if you didn't get paid. For example, we are doing these podcasts. They are not for money. You're doing it because of the fulfillment it gives. There is a certain level of fulfillment a person gets from doing what they are designed and called to do. One of the most painful scriptures in the Bible is in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. The richest man in the world, then the wisest man in the world gathered. He says he gathered all singers and everything that his heart desired. Everything that his soul wanted, he did not deny it to himself. He had the means. But he says, I hated life. After getting everything, he still hated life. So in your statement you made in one of our conversations, you said we have to embrace Solomon's wisdom and reject his foolishness. So in the life of the wisest, the life of the wisest man, there was foolishness. So what was his folly? His folly was in that he departed from his purpose. So he had wisdom, but that wisdom was not channeled in the right direction. It wasn't saving the human family like it was supposed to.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's develop it further. Adopting a priestly pattern and a model of building. What is that priestly pattern of building?
So God has a very interesting way of doing things. So if we are to build anything, let's do it the way He does it. The priestly model of building a business is this way. Priests have, when the children of Israel were coming to the promised land, they were told that they were all going to get portions. So Moses was going to divide land for all of them, except the priests, except the Levites. So the Levites did not have anything. Their portion, their inheritance, was the service. It was just they were serving God. They were the custodians of the temple and the altars and stuff like that. They were just going to continue serving God and ministering to God. So, but then God says, your portion is going to be 10% of everything. So there's 12 tribes that own fields. You don't own fields.
It's 11. I think normally they're 12.
They're actually 12.
Oh, okay.
They were
13th.
so the way it was designed, it's very interesting because remember at the Joseph had two tribes. There's two sons, and the sons of Joseph became the tribes. The Benjamin and Manasseh, they became the tribes as well. Yeah. So the way they were camped was
on top
that
of the original 12.
and on top of the original 12. So Joseph is taken out. He doesn't appear as a tribe, but his two sons appear as tribes. So how this happened was, yeah. So what happened was his father, when he was blessing his sons, he said to him, "Your sons, the first ones you gave birth to, are no longer yours, but these ones are now mine." So Ephraim and Manasseh, they are now mine. So they will have an inheritance among your brothers. So the camping of Israel was the one at the center, the tribe at the center was Levi. So you'd have 3, 3, 3, 3. So that's 12 tribes around this tribe.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so there was 3 on all sides, making it 12. Then the Levites were
like an anchor.
yeah, they were the ones at the center, which were the custodians of the temple and all that. So these 12 tribes, they all had portions, but they did not have land. But the instruction from God was all these other 12 will bring a tithe, which is 10%, to them. So they may not have a field, but they have 120% of harvest coming from around the land.
Yeah.
So the priestly model of building is you have small portions, or you have interests, you have investments in a lot of companies while you are pushing and doing what you're doing, but you have a lot of other companies.
Isn't that original form of diversification?
Now, that's exactly where diversification came from. We have a lot of what we have today, which is taken as principles from the scriptures. Yeah. Even in the diversification, you also see that in Genesis, where the Bible says there's one river that broke into 4 heads. So that's diversification. Right? So you have the main business, but you must always make sure there is multiple streams of income. That is coming from...
That's my language.
Yeah, that is coming from the Bible.
Okay.
That's how the priests lived.
Now, borrow vessels to multiply your wealth. Borrow vessels to multiply your wealth. Simplify that.
Let's look at it this way. If I, for example, we're trying to build. It's kind of first of its kind, the PEBS concept, where you have mainly these are, most of them are online. You have your Uber, it connects passenger in a car, a car driver. You have your eBay and all these other platform businesses. But we are trying to create a platform business, but with more contact and more physical interactions. However, for us to be able to perfect the concept, we are going to have to then borrow vessels. So the borrowing vessels comes here. I may not know everything as far as the legal side of things are concerned, and I don't have to go into business or study a course to understand that kind of side of the business. But I can find somebody who has knowledge in that area. If it means I partner with them, give them a piece of what I'm doing. But the thing that has caused delays in a lot of our business building strategies is that we want to run a solo affairs. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, almost always, 20% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Or
That one
five,
is definitely true.
yeah, 5% of Game City, if I own 5% of Game City, is a lot better than 100% of a tuck shop in my yard.
Without doubt.
So,
Without doubt.
so sometimes what we have to do is, there is the story in the Bible of 2 Kings chapter 4. A prophet dies and he leaves his children, that's the next generation, in debt. So the next generation is in debt, but there's oil. So this oil is not able to feed them and is not able to pay the debts. So the prophet comes and says to the woman, go and borrow vessels. Yeah, what does that speak to? It speaks to the knowledge, the skill, the expertise. Some people have acumen in areas that you do not have acumen. I do not have to try and use what I have only, but the oil that I have multiplies if it gets into certain people's vessels. Now, if I sit down with you and I say to you, Mr. Mogobe, I have this concept, and I just tell you a story about this idea, and then I ask you to comment afterwards. You may say things after my presentation, you may say things that I've never seen.
Never even contemplated.
Yeah, so my oil is multiplying, but I needed an extra vessel to multiply my oil. As a man called, as one of my mentors, business mentors, is called Peter J. Daniels. He's an Australian.
Peter J. Daniels.
Yes, Peter J. Daniels. He said in his boardroom when he's having business meetings and when they're designing strategies and he wants to expand things, he tells his CEOs, COOs, and his leaders to bring their wives. He says he asks them that day, they bring their wives. The wives, they bring their husbands. He says that way I can harvest free information, because for a fact the wives know more about this company than the husbands do, because every time the husband gets home, well, he may know, yeah. So the wife has an idea, or is probably even asked the husband a question, but why don't you do it this way?
Hey, that's very smart.
Yeah.
This one, I'm going to put it to you, but I'm going to ask you to use PEBS as an example to answer it. In terms of, don't dig on hard surfaces. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
If you don't have to, don't enter into the field of the fatherless. I want you to use PEBS as an example to illustrate.
To illustrate this one. Yeah. Don't dig on hard surfaces if you don't have to. Right. Let's use, maybe let me start by giving you where this line comes from. If there's 10 of us in a room, and I say to us, let's all dig 1 meter each. And quickly, somebody may think, okay, take whatever tool I'm handed, then you dig. So you're going to dig 1 meter here, the next person will dig. So we will have a lot of holes around. So we have 10 1 meter holes. But if we decided that you dig your first meter, I wait for you, because one, you'll have to deal with the hard surface, the hard part. I wait for you to finish. When you are done with your 1 meter, I come where you stopped, and then I dig my 1 meter. And so the area is going to be softer because you've had to deal with whatever is on the surface and the first layer. Then I may deal with whatever it is I'm dealing with, but I am not going to face the same problems that you faced. The second advantage with that is that it gives us, at the end of the hole digging, we don't have a lot of holes around. We have one hole which is 10 meters. But if we all dug around the bush, we will all have, the total depth is just going to be 1 meter.
And this also ties in with something Isaac Newton said, that you can see farther because he sits on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because
it's a lovely quotation from Isaac Newton.
From Isaac Newton, yes, as he was writing to his fellow student. So so what we are doing as PEBS, that's exactly where our business model comes from. We are looking for, so instead of just paying attention to what business a person can do, is all right, so what's the idea? This is the idea. Who is already doing that? What is it that we can learn from them? Find out the advantages that they can provide us, because sometimes the only advantage you need is information, and most people are willing to share their experiences. And so if I find your experiences in property development, I'm not going to struggle doing property development the way you struggled. Well, except if you are a wicked man who is not going to, who's not going to share information. Most people are not. In fact, we are designed in such a way that we always want to mentor somebody we want to share. That's who we are.
It comes natural.
It comes natural, actually. Sharing, it comes natural. We are always talking. We are always wanting to share
This
our
is the part where I want most business people watching you to really listen carefully. Because I do speak to audiences sometimes about wills, about bequeathing to this next generation. So the point here is make sure your wealth is
covenanted, yes.
Covenanted.
Yeah.
Covenanted. Can you just explain covenanted and then apply it to what we're talking about?
Right, so let's look at, every human being believes in something. Everybody believes in something. Well, we believe in God. Somebody may not necessarily share our faith, but they do believe in something. It was George Clason in his book, The Richest Man in Babylon. He talked about you pay yourself, and then there's in fact he was saying that you don't use all your money. You're buying clothes, you're buying shoes.
This is a part of what you earn is yours to keep.
Is yours to keep. And then he says a part of that you give to the, in fact in his statement he says you pay penance to the gods. Right. So that means even a person who believes in pagan gods, whatever it is, everybody knows that whatever it is you believe in, whatever you call an altar in your life, whatever spiritual deity you believe in, there has to be, in that which you are doing, there has to be a relationship between your life, of course, and your work with, let me just use God, right? I am a believer. I've for a long time now I've worked with God, and I have seen how the advantages that I get as a person each time I covenant my wealth, and that means giving. I give a portion of what I make. I give to the Lord. So I put it in an envelope. I give it to the house of the Lord. I give it to my pastor.
You're talking about not just about tithing, giving to charity. What does that do to your business if you covenant?
If you covenant your business, now we have already said everybody believes in something, which means our competition is also spiritual. Someone who's competing against you is going to apply whatever force they are going to apply to outdo you. Because, of course, let me use an example. This is a practical example. Somebody shared this with me. I was talking to them. I was helping them. And I said the same statement to them. And they laughed. So I asked them, what are you laughing at? She said to me, she's a consultant. So she consults and people bring their tenders to her. And this was before this person submitted their tender. And so she then asked the person why. She says, when I touched that tender, I felt headaches, I felt something went wrong. I felt something is not right with my body. So I immediately asked this gentleman, what's wrong? I consult, people bring their work to me, I look at them, but why, what happened? I touched this document and I'm getting headaches. I'm feeling myself, I'm not feeling good, I'm not feeling myself. The man said to her, this is a rough world. Before our tenders are submitted, we take them to the places where we get help. Yeah, so
basically to the traditional.
Yeah, basically to the
medicine.
traditional medicine man. So everybody believes in whatever. So some will do whatever they do. As a person, if you covenant your wealth, you are saying, of course, as a human being, I believe that there is God. I will make sure my business is protected. Now let's get that from scripture. Abraham, when he came from the slaughter of the kings, this is Genesis 14. The Bible says he gave a tithe of all things. Now fast forward to Hebrews 7, and that's over 8 generations later. Paul says, and Levi collected a tithe from his brothers because he, that's Levi, paid a tithe when he was in Abraham's loins. So when Abraham was doing it, his children that were not even present at the time were affected by that covenant. So a covenant is a spiritual transaction that will outlive the person who cuts it, and it is present in the absence of the person who cuts it. So it is being conscious of the fact that there are other forces at work, there are other powers at work, and so as a child of God, I do believe that. I believe that strongly. So my business sails during hard times. You just don't experience what everybody else experiences. The Bible says Isaac sowed or planted during drought, and he had a bumper harvest. So how does a man prosper when others are?
Like this covenant gifting is a form of insurance policy.
Spiritual insurance. You can you can say that. You can use that bluntly. It's like spiritual insurance, as in things can be going on around. Psalm 91, one of the most common scriptures. 1,000 shall fall on your side, 10,000 on your right hand, but only with your eyes will you behold and see. So it will not come near your dwelling. What is it that is keeping you from what everyone else is experiencing? There are people who made a lot of money during COVID. When everyone was having a hard time, some people were doing well. Yeah.
Well, one thing that Klassen also said, do not buy from the clothes maker and the sandal maker more than you can pay out of the rest. And still have enough for food and charity. That's when the penance is brought in.
Yes.
That's a good way to segue to my next point, because the question of being content. And remember, we're talking about building.
Building, yes, transgenerationally,
yes. I want you to then help me how this then helps you to become content with going as far as the gate.
Yeah. We see, so a vision has to be something further than one lifetime. So remember, we said the shortest period will have to be 3 generations. So that means you are seeing the full picture, but you know very well you're not going to go all the way. If the vision is to build a CBD, this is going to be your work, this is the vision, this is what you're going to accomplish at the end of the journey, this is the vision you have. But you realize that this is not something that I'm going to be able to do in my lifetime. You are going to see it, but you are not going to live to enjoy the fruit of that labor. So we talked about it earlier on when talking about the Chinese seed. Yeah. You have to be willing to labor, knowing very well that the trees I'm planting, the business I'm building, the full expression of it the money, the billions, the private jets, whatever it is that will be the result of my labor, will not be now.
Yeah, I want us to talk about this idea of the gate.
Going as far as
going as far as the gate. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still trying to help us understand it.
Yes, and I think it is also worth pointing out that this is not just for somebody like a family kind of transgenerational building,
Yeah.
but even nationally, right? We have to look at ourselves as nation builders. We have to say, if we are doing business in our nation, we have to make sure that the next generation doesn't start where we started. Right? I had a conversation, so one of the things we do as PEBS is helping people in their businesses. There's a young lady that's doing a sports agency. So I had an opportunity to have a conversation with Claude Dube, one of our former athletes. I was saying to him, you would not have done well as an athlete if today's athlete is still facing the same challenges that you faced during your time. Which means as a business person, you have to look at yourself as whether you are a pioneer or you are a second generation business person, make sure the next business person or the next generation is not still struggling with the same things we struggled with. So what does that mean then? Coming to the issue of being content with only going as far as the gate. That is, I know that we are going to have to possess this land. This is how far we are supposed to go. That's where we are going as a nation or as business people in the country or in a region. Some of us are going to only sacrifice our lives, blood, sweat, and grit, but we will only go as far as the gate. Is that good enough? Is it a sacrifice I'm willing to make to be the one that carries the rest of us only to the gates so that the next generation starts from where I stopped? I think it goes back to the same concept, the same principle.
But looking around this community where you are operating, are these ideas being embraced? Are you seeing signs that people are beginning to think transgenerationally?
Here and there. It's not an exciting topic. It's not very exciting in the sense that we often feel I have to get reward from my labor. And then of course we see, I think the principle is that even though God had said to Abraham, you are going to possess the land, there are things that he enjoyed during his time, but not the ultimate. So these are not things that are quite exciting in the sense that we all want to, if I'm going to work, I must get the reward of my labor. I must get the fruit of my work. But of course, things are changing and people are becoming very excited about seeing a change. And so there are those that are getting excited. I think one of the things we're going to discuss as we go on is there are think tanks that people are beginning to come up with. We are forming think tanks. We are coming together and we are saying let's quiz each other, let's question each other, let's interrogate each other, let's come up with things that will solve our problems, maybe not even for ourselves, but for our children or for the next generation, so that the next guy doesn't have to do what I'm doing.
Are the issues more spiritual than physical, or is this the sort of thing that we can do organizationally, or we need to bring in our men of God, our community leaders? Is there a strong spiritual component to this?
There is a strong spiritual component to this. It's cultural, it's political. Let me use our setting. something that I completely don't agree with, but we are still doing it. We have to do it as long as we can, but we have to get out of it. So we have people that are supposed to get married, and then you find out that the requirement from the family is that before you get married, you must build a house at home. Right, so that's okay.
The argument being, where are you taking him?
Yeah, exactly. The argument being, so where are you going to take this child?
Your bride, yeah.
Your bride. You're going to marry somebody, where are you taking the bride? So build a house at home. Right. Now the question is, see, that's walking backwards. That's walking backwards. A generation or a father must give. That's okay at some point, but we must get out of that. Because a father must give a child.
Some cultures still do that.
Now, cultures will still do that. Even here, we still do that. Yeah.
I mean, what I mean is they build houses for the sons or for their daughters.
No.
Get married.
Exactly.
I've
That's
seen that in one or two cultures, Islamic cultures, Hindu cultures.
That's how it's supposed to be, because that's called a gift of destiny. Your child must not start where you started. You believed God, or you had to take a loan to get your house, to build your house. You had to take a loan to buy your first car. Your child must not dig on hard surface, because your child is now digging the same surface or entering into a field of a fatherless. It's like that's because the field of the fatherless have not been cultivated. There's bushes, there's thorns, you have to work very hard to take a first step. You have to literally debush it, do what? But the fields, when the Bible talks about it, because that's a scripture in Proverbs 23, I think 23:9, the principle is, if the field belongs to a father, you enter into the field of that man, there's work that has already been done. So there are advantages already. You're not going to walk backwards. It's not even starting from fresh if you are going to have to debush.
And this use of the expression the gate, what does it mean? Now
the gate is the entry point. So this is the most. So the gate is both, of course, interesting in that sad and sweet. It's where you see it's an entry point. But if you go as far as the gate, you are just like somebody who did not make it. You both made it and you didn't make it. So you have to be happy with seeing the next generation enjoy the benefits of your labor, getting into the, enjoying the fruits of the trees we planted. If today's politician decides, I'm not going to just sit in the office or this position, but let's redefine things, let's create advantages for the next generation. So what is it that we have to cultivate? Let's treat this as a field. What is it that we have to do? He may spend maybe his term not even enjoying the benefits of that office, but working very hard to create a certain system or environment that the next person is going to walk in and enjoy, right? That's going as far as the gate. You did not get in, but you pushed the rest of the community to a place where they start from inside.
Somebody else will take it.
Somebody takes it.
The story of Moses and Joshua help us understand this.
That's also. I think if you go through the Bible, you'll realize most of what we're trying to do, the perfect patterns and models of business, any transgenerational business, whether family as well, because this applies everywhere. If you're building a family.
I'm saying this because in the case of Moses, his sons did not take over.
No, yeah, his sons did, but Joshua came
and took things. He was his mentee.
Yes. So it's not so much about the sons as in our biological sons, because the advancement of a community is not tied to a particular family. You may find that the next person appointed comes from a different family, but they have the same spirit, the same passion, they have the energy to push it further. Joshua, it helps us in two ways. It helps us, the story of Joshua and Moses helps us this way. Number one, in that Joshua was not Moses' biological son. So you can have a successor who is not biologically your own son, but being able to take the business further. Secondly, Joshua was trained by Moses. So it helps us realize that you have to invest heavily on the training of the next person. Otherwise, you are working very hard for something that the next generation will just scatter without.
Yeah. So let's take company X. It's a startup, and the owner is being guided to adopt this principle of transgenerational wealth. What are the 2 or 3 crucial steps that he from day one that he has to embrace to apply these principles to fruition?
To fruition. So first step, the foundation of the company. When you're building anything, if you're going to build this a 5-story building, the foundation is not the same as the foundation of a double-story house. So that's the first thing. How far? Define your journey. That's the first thing. Define your journey. So is it a transgenerational business, and how great is your impact? That's defining your impact. Is it something that you're just building nationally, or you want to go regional, or how far do you want to? That's the first and most important thing. Then the second principle would then be the resources, gathering the resources to do that. Because you may have to spend a lot of time finding people who already know and have information on what it is you're trying to do. So you have defined your journey. Number 2, what is it who has the information, who has the resources, who can help you get started? Because you don't want to waste time digging on hard surfaces. You don't want to waste time researching when somebody has a paper on that, or when somebody has already done a research on that. So you want to, when you start, because your journey is long, you don't want to waste time walking backwards.
Okay. Let's talk about the Christ model of building, which is, the one now we are using for business.
Yeah.
In terms of when we invest heavily in the next generation, what can we learn from the Christ model?
Christ, we rarely, actually what we find is, a number of times when he was ministering, he would use his disciples. He would send, okay, let's find it in Matthew 10, in Luke 10, where he does not go. He actually sends his disciples. He spent 3.5 years pouring himself in what would then become the foundations of the church. He becomes, and so we find an interesting statement in Ephesians chapter 2:20. The Bible says the church is built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, and Jesus Christ being the chief cornerstone. So he becomes part of that foundation. He's the main foundation stone. However, he keys these guys into the foundation process. So he spent 3.5 years investing in the ability of these men to explode his kingdom and build it and take it to where he wants it to go. He doesn't go there himself, but he will invest and pour heavily on these. This is something that we have to be willing to do. And let's walk out of business for a minute and go to the family. If a father decided, I am looking at my 3 boys, and I don't want any one of them to fail in life. So I'm going to take all my failures and successes, and I will teach these boys. They will not fail where I failed. I will mark the 10s. I will make sure everything I have learned is poured into them. You are already giving them an advantage. If you give money to somebody who has not learned certain disciplines, that's not giving an inheritance. Inheritance would mean working on their... It will disappear in 6 months. It is often said that, I think I read this in a book, one financial book, I can't remember the title. The person was saying that it has been discovered that if all the money in the world was taken and distributed equally to everybody, everyone will get about 5.5 million US dollars. But in 5 years, that money would have gone back to the people that had it before it was, because it's not about the absence or presence of the money, but there are certain things, there are certain advantages, there are certain qualities that will help a person bring or keep money.
As we conclude our conversation, let's talk about building a name, touching lives, endearing yourselves to the family.
To the human family,
to the human family. How important is that for transgenerational wealth creation and wealth retention?
Money is not the only thing that we can use as currency. There is then a name can actually be better than money at times. Yeah. If I walked into this building and I can prove that I am Mr. Mogobe's young brother, if I can prove that, the treatment is not the same as the treatment I would get if I'm just some stranger. Even if I am the president of Rwanda. Right. Here, there's a particular name that is known. Now, there's a very interesting account in the Bible of a lady that died. And but she was very useful. She had endeared herself to the community. So this community took clothes, the things that this lady had. Her name was Dorcas. She had been taking care of some widows and elderly people. So they took the clothes to the apostles, and when they got there, they told the apostles, "This woman is very useful to us." So they demanded that this person be brought back to life. And this person was prayed for and brought back to life. So the apostles prayed, and the woman came back to life.
Dorcas was resurrected.
Yeah, was resurrected because Dorcas was very useful to the human family, to the community where she
So your point is that if you are useful, even when you are gone, those you leave behind will be highly regarded.
Will be highly regarded for your sake. For the sake of, you'd find that even in scripture, for the sake of David, God treated the sons of David because he had an agreement with David. Jonathan and David had an agreement, had a covenant. And when Jonathan died, Jonathan is Saul's son. When Jonathan died, David looked for anybody from the house of Jonathan. Yeah, and found Mephibosheth. His name was Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth. Yeah, I remember Dr. Stima used to say Brother M. He says, this name is tough. Let's just call him Brother M. Yeah. So Mephibosheth was found in some hidden place called Lodibar, and he was crippled because he fell when during war somebody dropped him and as a baby. So if you're building transgenerational wealth, if you're building transgenerationally, you have to make sure it's not just the money you leave behind, but your name. If people value what you are doing, they would want to keep it. If you dig a well for a village, you may find assistance from the villagers to keep the well secured because it benefits them. So there are certain things that when you are doing and serving your purpose, and when you're fulfilling your assignment, you're building a business, always have people that want your business to succeed, even if it's for personal reasons.
Selfish reasons.
Even if it's for selfish reasons. Let there be a huge community that want your business to succeed, even if it's for selfish reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only enemy we have here is time, because otherwise we could go on and on.
Amen.
So this is a time now when you get to ask me a question. What question do you have for me?
A question I have for you is if you were to start afresh, to start business, to do business again, start afresh, what is the business you would not do? And what is the business you would have done earlier or quicker?
Okay.
So the things you felt you waste time with, and the things you felt you delayed.
It's a very brilliant question, and I've thought about it once. But this is the first time someone has asked me a question like that. When I reflect back, my biggest regret is not starting to read earlier. One of the things I wanted to become was an architect, and I didn't realize that wanting to become an architect was an indication that I wanted to go into real estate. And when I ran into a stumbling block, which was a requirement for science, or specifically chemistry, which I didn't like, for me to go forward with science and then to become an architect, I then switched to law. So, if I was going to have any regret, is that I really aggressively started my personal development journey when I was in my 30s. If I had started reading aggressively and learning and acquiring the knowledge that I have, I'd have started earlier. And I think through that reading and that studying, I would have found my calling earlier. In terms of my interest being in real estate. But since God says whatever He works things out for good.
For our good,
For those who
love Him,
love Him. Yeah. He's managed to help me use my legal knowledge to also complement my property skills. That is why I'm keeping the law firm. So what would have easily become a regret initially
has now
turned
become
out to be a blessing. So I would then answer that question by saying, no regrets. There's nothing I would want to redo. Everything has worked out.
Yes. Okay.
I hope I answered that question.
No, you did.
Yeah,
you did. Yeah, you did.
All right. Now, Pastor, I forgot to ask you the question about the crystal ball in terms of what you see happening with PEBS, what you see happening with your ministry in the next 5 to 10 years. But I'll keep people in suspense. I'll invite you back and ask you that question on
our next visit.
Yes. Just leave the viewer, watch that, check out that camera, and leave the viewer with an inspirational, motivational message, a take home.
A take home, yeah. This is what I would want to say to us. The reason why I asked the question, what are the regrets? It's because I feel we live at a time where there is a lot that is present and available for us. In any area, if you want to pursue anything, information is available. There are people that are available to help. We have no excuse in our day and age in failing. There's no excuse, there's no reason. There is free information everywhere, online courses free, some free. YouTube has almost anything you can find. So develop an appetite, develop a hunger. And I appreciate the response that my host gave in answering the question, what would have been regret? He says if he had started reading. So develop an appetite to learn. Let's develop a hunger to learn. You can't be mediocre, you can't be average on anything. Let's leave a legacy. Let's have the next generation call us giants, because they will be able to use the advantages and the platforms that we are creating for them. Let's not get our kids and the next generation to call us the fools that did not take advantage of or use the advantages of their time. And that's what I would want to say to us. In any area, apply yourself. Let's not waste time with unprofitable things. Let's apply ourselves. Be the best in what you do. Be one that people would refer to and want to just have time with you because you are the best in what you do.
Okay. Can you tell them how they can reach you, whether at church or PEBS or anywhere on social media?
Right, so if you want to get hold of us, our PEBS office is the CPD, Mogobe Plaza, 3rd floor. That's where we are. That's the PEBS office. And if you want to get hold of us, our numbers, 71800 136 137. The same number. The only difference is the 6 and 7 at the end. The Facebook page is quite a number of them, but I'll give you, there's the Alex Moss International, is AM International, and then there's also a PEBS platform. You just search for PEBS on the social media platforms, you'll find us. And the church is behind Chobe Design, the old Chobe Design in G West Industrial. Our meeting times, Thursdays at 5:30 to 7:30, and Sundays we meet from 9:30 to 11:30. Right, so the same numbers can help you get hold of us. We will.
It remains for me, Pastor Alex Moss,
Yes,
entrepreneur Alex Moss, to thank you so much for sharing so generously.
Thank you, sir.
Wonderful. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Amen.